Well, a very, very happy Monday morning, everyone, and welcome to the John Kentera Show on YouTube, Facebook, and on X. Man, Padres, final game of spring training. Cactus League play wraps up this afternoon over in Peoria. Padres will take on the Seattle Mariners. Right-hander Steven Kolick will take the mound, vying for a spot in this rotation. It's really down to two out of the three are going to get it, either Steven Kolick, Randy Vasquez, or Kyle Hart. So we'll get into that. A lot to cover. We're not going to really get into the NCAA tournament. We are going to bring up a couple of things college basketball-wise a little bit later on in the program. But I would ask you, if maybe you're tuning in for the very, very first time, if you would subscribe to our channel. We got to build this thing up. And like, and of course, I always love your questions. And I love them during the show. I love them reading them on whether it be YouTube, Facebook, or X. If you come up with a question later in the day, we're on Mondays and Fridays at 10 a.m. I start the program off on a couple of solemn notes today. Saturday night, I was informed that one of our great guests and one of our great guys, Bryce Miller, the columnist for the Union Tribune, passed away at the age of 56. Bryce has been battling for, I don't know, 2.5, 3 years. He had bladder cancer, and he was in spring training a few weeks back, and things really unraveled. They got him home. They got him the best treatment possible, and the doctor just couldn't do any more. And unfortunately, I kind of waited all last week to get that news that I got on Saturday night that he had passed away at the age of 56. You know, Bryce Miller came to San Diego, I think it was back in 2016. After a great career writing in Des Moines, Iowa. Great guy. And there are a lot of things that I respected about Bryce Miller, but the thing that I really respected is when he got here, he wasn't a guy that came in and pumped his chest out and told everybody everything he knew. He was a guy that put his boots on, dug in, and went out and talked to everyone he possibly could to find out about the history of San Diego sports. The other thing that I really, and I used to tweet him all the time, or I'd send him a text message because I really enjoyed his writing. I mean, he was a columnist, but he also did all these great feature stories that a lot of other people wouldn't even have wanted to try to attack. And Bryce would attack them. And he would go out there, he would do his due diligence, do his homework, and write some great stuff. And, you know, I stayed in contact with him. I check with him every once in a while. Hey, how you doing? And I remember seeing him, and I saw him actually about a month ago. He came to a UCSD basketball game when I was doing, and we had a nice chat. And, but when I really got to visit with him was at the Holiday Bowl this year. I was sitting down there. He came in the press box like he normally did. He came over and sat next to me for about a quarter. And we just talked. And at that point in time, I go, how you doing? He goes, I'm doing pretty good. He goes, I put a little weight back on. I'm feeling a little bit better. And then things completely unraveled. But I just want you folks to know how good a guy this man was. I mean, he was a guy that embraced San Diego after living, his life in Iowa. He, in his late 40s, ventured out, and it was an adventure. I mean, he was the sports editor of the paper, lead columnist. I mean, he was a great guy, and he wanted to try something different. And he came out here, and man, he had a home run, I think, with the Santa Union Tribune. I'll tell you what, he had a home run with me. His articles were fresh. They were well thought out. He did his due diligence, and he was just a great guy. Just an absolutely great guy. And we're all a little poorer today for hearing that Bryce passed away, but we're also very fortunate that our trail passed one another, because I'll always remember him with fond greatness. I really will. This one stung me a little bit because I'm a really big fan of this guy, and a great man. The other one that hit me with a gut punch, literally, was on Friday night when we heard George Foreman, the great two-time heavyweight boxing champion in the world and Olympic gold medalist, passed away at the age of 76. And I guess when you get to where I'm at in my life, you start losing friends, and I've certainly lost Bryce. Lost a lot of sports figures that I followed as a kid growing up. And George Foreman, always had a lot of respect for him. He had an interesting career. He won the gold medal in '68, and I always remember as a 10-year-old kid watching ABC, and I think Howard Cosell was doing the boxing matches, but of course Jim McKay was anchoring the coverage. It was at Mexico City, and George Foreman won the gold medal, and he walked around with that little American flag in his hand. Always had a lot of respect for him. And then he won the heavyweight title. We know about what happened, the Rumble in the Jungle with Muhammad Ali, where basically, he wore himself out trying to beat Ali, and Ali was hanging against the ropes. And then, Foreman walked away from boxing and came back almost a decade later and eventually regained the world championship. Pretty amazing man. Became a preacher, great entrepreneur. The George Foreman grill. I had one of those. But I'll never forget, and I got to share this story with you. And I don't remember the year, but the great Terry Norris from San Diego, well, actually from Lubbock, Texas, but he fought out of San Diego. And he was fighting at the sports arena against a guy named Brett Lally. And my dad, for a lot of you that don't know, my dad was a professional boxer. And so my brother and I thought we'd do something special for my dad. We're going to take him to the boxing matches. So we get down there, the sports arena. We're all fired up. I mean, we're fired up. We love boxing. We watched a lot of it as a kid, sitting in a little room with dad, and we had a speed bag in our garage. And, my dad would work with us on boxing, not that I know how to box, but I know the fundamentals a little bit. So we were so excited. And I was so proud to take my dad to this boxing match to see Terry Norris. And George Foreman was doing the fight on television. I can't remember if it was HBO. I think it was HBO. And so anyways, he's walking around, and I was just all kind of giddy. I'd seen this guy on TV. I knew he was a champion. He's walking around. And never forget, we watched the undercard. And then Terry Norris goes against Brett Lally. And it was one of those fights you're all geared up for. And Terry Norris knocks him out, about 2 minutes and 40-something seconds to the first round. Knocks him through the ropes, and the fight's over. And the match was over. Everything was over. The undercard was over. Everything was over. We got up and left. And I look back on it now, and it was a fun time. And I can't begin to tell you how disappointed I was that fight was over so quick. I was hoping it'd go, 5, 6, 7 rounds. But it was over before the end of the first round. But I just remember I was all excited because George Foreman was there. And I was really saddened on Friday night that he passed away. He's one of the good guys in boxing. One of the really good guys in boxing. So I wanted to mention that. Okay, we're going to get up and talk a little bit about the Padres. I mentioned they wrap up Cactus League play today. All their starters are supposed to be in there. They're going to get one at bat, get them out. They can pack up and head back to San Diego. They'll have workouts, I would imagine, tomorrow, Wednesday, and get ready to face Chris Sale on Thursday afternoon at 1:10. 4-game series against the Atlanta Braves. And I'll tell you what, not going to be easy. And then Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, you got the Cleveland Guardians coming in, another dynamite ball club. So first 7 home games are going to be dynamite for the Padres. They better get off to a good start. And having to go against last year's Cy Young Award winner, not going to be easy. Chris Sale, 18-3 last year? My goodness gracious, that's crazy. The Padres are going to finish up today. And we're going to get into a roster moves here before too long. But man, so much going on over the weekend, and the Padres were making moves right and left. And they made some moves over the weekend. They made another move just moments ago. And I'm going to get into the roster here. These are the guys that are on the roster. Okay, Elias Diaz appears to be the starting catcher. And we got a big conversation on that. But Elias Diaz, first base will be Luis Arraez, second base Jake Cronenworth, third base Manny Machado, shortstop Xander Bogaerts. It looks like Jason Hayward is going to make this team, even though he's had an awful spring. But you're going to play in left field. You got Jackson Merrill, you got Fernando Tatis Jr. Now, yesterday, these players were told they're going to make the ball club. Yuli Gurriel, 40 years of age, right-hand hitter. I guess the coaches like him. Jose Iglesias, a no-brainer for me. In fact, like I've said, I think he should start on Thursday against Chris Sale. Right-hand hitter, Guy hit over 400 last year against left-handed pitching. And let Cronenworth sit. He can play the second game. Martin Maldonado, 38 years of age. Last year, 48 games with the White Sox. He hit 119 before getting released. And they lost 121 games. And then Gavin Sheets. So then it came down to Connor Joe, Brandon Lockridge, Oscar Gonzalez, Eggy Rosario, or Tyler Wade. And this morning, Brandon Lockridge is told he's made the ball club. He had a hell of a spring. Guy can play all three outfield spots, can run like a deer, swung the hell out of the bat. Looks like he's going to platoon right now with Jason Hayward. So it looks like Connor Joe not going to make this ball club. Eggy Rosario, Oscar Gonzalez, Tyler Wade, and Luis Camposano all sent back to minor league camp today. Now here's the deal. Martin Maldonado, he's 3 for 22 in the spring. He hit 119 last year. The Padres apparently are saying if he could hit 200, he hadn't hit 200 in a number of years. He hit 191 a few years ago with Houston. If he could hit 200, 203 career hitter, but a lot of that damage was done years ago. The guy's one of the best catch and throw guys in baseball. There's no question about that. I love watching him catch. What does this say about Luis Camposano? Or better yet, what does it say about the Padres, what they think of Luis Camposano? They keep sending him back to AAA. What would you do? Would you keep the 38-year-old catcher, or would you keep the young guy that was supposed to be one of your key guys, 3-4 years ago, and you keep giving him an opportunity and you keep going the other way and sending him back? Maybe it'd be good if the Padres could trade him. I don't know how much they'd get for him. Probably not a whole lot. But, I'm seeing this right now. By the way, over the weekend, Brett Sullivan got DFA'd. Mason McCoy, his contract was selected. He got shipped back to minor league camp as well this morning. But my question is, to me, this seems almost like 2 years ago when they signed Nelly Cruz and Matt Carpenter. They're going to go with the old guys. And you know how I feel. I love veterans coming off the bench. But, man, you got some good young players. I mean, Connor Joe ended up, after a slow start, he had a really good training camp. He can play first. He can play left. He can play right. He can play third if needed. He could DH. I think he'll be up here, and I think the reason he's going down is he's got options left. All these guys that got sent out have options left. So you want to try to keep as much depth in the organization as possible. And at some point in time, these guys are going to get brought up. But it's disappointing that some of these guys are being shipped out. I thought Connor Joe would make this team, and I thought Luis Camposano would make the team. You give me your thoughts on this. And I'm not trying to dog Brandon Lockridge because he had a hell of a spring. You know the great thing about this whole thing? All these guys except Eggy Rosario had pretty good springs. Tyler Wade was okay. But, I mean, Connor Joe had a good spring. Lockridge was off the charts. Oscar Gonzalez was off the chart. I mean, he hit close to 400. And, I mean, he had like 7 doubles. Didn't have any home runs, but he hit 7 doubles. He's still a fairly young player. What's he, 27 years of age? So we'll see where it goes, but I understand why Lockridge made this team. He is a perfect 26 player because he can play all 3 outfield spots. He can pitch, run, he can bunt, he can do the little things. And quite frankly, I'm not going to dog him because he earned his spot. I told you last Friday when we did the podcast, I told you my catchers would be Diaz and Camposano, but I told you that the Padres were going to probably keep Maldonado because my sources told me they were going to keep him. But I would have kept Camposano. And I'd have let Maldonado maybe, go to another organization where he could hook up as a backup catcher. Here in San Diego, he'll probably split time with Elias Diaz. Or what they'll do is Maldonado will start and they'll let him catch. And if they're behind, they'll pinch hit for him. If they got the lead, they'll let him stay in the ball game. Going to be interesting. But again, I got to go back to on Thursday. If you're managing the ball club, and I'm going to ask you this right now, and I want your opinion. I realize it's opening day. Everybody's going to be excited. But would you start Jose Iglesias over Jake Cronenworth? Cronenworth hit 203 against left-handers last year. And it's not like he's going to be going against a rum bum on Thursday, going against maybe the best pitcher in baseball right now, Chris Sale, left-hander. Wouldn't you go with Iglesias? And I know Cronenworth would be disappointed, and I would be if I was a player, but hey, they all count, folks. You got to win every game you possibly can. The games in April mean just as much as they do in September. That's what I always get a kick out of people. Well, you got to win in August and September. Well, I'll tell you what, you better win in April and May and June, or August and September may not matter a whole lot. So give me your opinion on this Padre roster. Jason Hayward going to make the team. I thought he was going to get cut. The way he was playing, I thought he would get cut. They must have told him somewhere along the line in spring training, hey, just take it easy. Don't worry about your numbers. Just get your work in and be ready when the bell rings. Because on performance, he doesn't make this team. He's not even close compared to what these other guys have done. And I do think spring training matters to a certain degree. I mean, if you're hitting 150, you're not swinging the bat very well. So we'll see where it goes. And you know what? I have no doubt Jason Hayward's going to he'll end up doing a decent job for the Padres. You're not going to be Jason Hayward of Atlanta of years ago. I mean, he got off to a great start in his career, struggled mightily. He went to St. Louis that one year and then signed with the Cubs, that big deal. And I don't think offensively he's ever been the player that the scouts projected him to be. Why? I don't know. He's always been a great defender. He's a great pro. And I'm not going to dog him, but as far as, production in the spring, there was none. There was none. So we got a lot to cover on this roster. You got to give me your opinion on this because I think a lot of guys are probably hanging their head today and having to go over to the minor league camp probably pissed. And you know what? If they're any type of competitor, they ought to be pissed. So a lot to cover on that. Okay, the fourth and fifth spots. I'm going to say it's going to be in flux. For me, I think I'd probably go with Randy Vasquez and Kyle Hart. Now, a development this morning, and I'm going to try to get you all the up-to-date information. Apparently, the Padres are going to have Nick Pivetta tomorrow stay back in Arizona and throw in a minor league game. So they probably want to try to continue to stretch him out. That means that he would probably line up to pitch that nationally televised game on Sunday. Now, remember, the game on Sunday is going to start, I think, at 4:10. Saturday's game is going to be at 4:15. That also will be on national television. So the way the Padres rotation looks right now, you've got Michael King throwing on Thursday. You've got Dylan Cease throwing on Friday night. Not sure who's going to throw the third game, but it looks like Pivetta will throw the fourth game, and then we'll see who's going to throw the fifth game, the first game against the Cleveland Guardians. Your choices. The guy that's pitching today, Stephen Kolek, left-hander Kyle Hart, or right-hander Randy Vasquez. Here's the way I'm looking at it right now, and I might be totally wrong, but I'm going on what I've seen, what I know, and what I've seen in the past. I think Kolek ends up in the bullpen. I think he's your long guy. I think Randy Vasquez probably ends up being in the rotation. He made 20 starts last year. I think Kyle Hart, who I did not think pitched great the other day, but if you listen to the Padres and you listen to him, he was happy. Now, granted, there were a couple of balls not played well behind him that should have been outs, and that led to his bad numbers. I mean, he had some ugly numbers the other day in his ball game on over the weekend. He gave up 6 earned runs. But I think Kyle Hart will be in the rotation. It'd be nice to have a left-hander in the rotation, quite frankly. But I think Randy Vasquez and I think Kolek probably ends up coming out of the bullpen because he's had experience. And so is Kyle Hart. But Padres didn't sign him to bring him out of the bullpen. So we'll see where that goes. But right now we know that King and Cease are throwing game 1 and 2, and Pavetta more than likely the final game. We got to figure out who's pitching the third game against the Braves. Braves are going to be tough, man. I know they've had a lot of injuries, but they're awful tough. Jeff from SoCal, I don't care one bit if Crone feels disappointed if replaced by Iglesias. I want this team to win. I don't care about feelings, just win. Iglesias gets a start at second base. Absolutely. Bingo. Hey, I'll tell you something, Jeff. When I got into coaching, my dad was a hard school dude, always fair with people. But he told me, he goes, John, when you're coaching, you're out to win ball games, not popularity contests. And I've always looked at it that way. You know, I want to be good to my players. I want to be honest with my players. I want to communicate with my players. But at the end of the day, I owe it to my ball club to play the best lineup on that given day. And I really think probably you ought to have Brandon Lockridge in the lineup. If you're going to run a platoon out there in left field, Brandon Lockridge is opening day left fielder. And Iglesias ought to be the opening day second baseman. That's the way I see it. It's going to be interesting. When you come in here on Friday, and we may have a guest on Friday. I don't know. I got a couple guys in mind. But we come in here on Friday, it will be interesting to dissect that Padre lineup. It'll be interesting to dissect the game itself and see how they perform. Hopefully the Padres can get off to a good start and they don't start out 1-3 or 1-5 or something like that. Let's have a good homestand. Let's have a good homestand. Let's go 5-2 before you go out on the road and have to play the Cubs and the A's. But I totally agree, man. You're out to win ball games, not popularity contests. That's the way it goes. Willie, coach, concern about both Darvish and Musgrove. Neither can stay healthy, bad contracts. Musgrove's working on getting back. He won't be back this year. I mean, I know he'd like to pitch in September. That's not going to be the case. Darvish, on the other hand, Willie, I'll tell you what. Here's how the Padres are going to play Darvish. Darvish is going to take as much time as he needs because the Padres are figuring they've got enough right now where they can get in the playoffs. And they want him late in the year. So we may not see Darvish anytime soon. The other thing, apparently they had an orthopedic surgeon look at him. There's no ligament damage. So now it's just rest and rehab. So let's put Darvish over on the sideline for a while. I don't know when he'll come back. And when he does come back, it's going to take him a while to get into game shape, and he can throw on the side, but he's not going to be throwing with the intensity and the adrenaline that he does when he's in a Major League Baseball game. So, you know, I was looking at Darvish's numbers last year. And remember, he missed a lot of the year last year, not only from the personal issue, but he had some injuries that were tugging at him. Last year, 16 starts, 7-3, a 3.31 ERA, pitched 81 2/3 innings. You go back to 2023, where, you know, you had problems there, 24 starts, 8-10, and a 4.56. And, you know, but, you know, through not a lot that year. So I was looking at Darvish. He made the All-Star team one year, but he ended up with a losing record and a high ERA. But 4 years with the Padres, he's made 100 starts right now. He's 39-32 with a 3.79 ERA and 579 innings. Overall, he's pitched really well. He's got to keep him on the bump, and that hasn't happened. We got a lot to discuss on this roster. The Martin Maldonado, and I got to be honest with you, I realize how tough it is, and I don't like to dog any of these guys, but Father Time has caught up with him. I mean, still a good catch and throw guy, but man, you got to at least be a threat at the plate. And Campusano's a threat at the plate. I mean, he can run into one every once in a while or hit a double. I don't know, man. If I'm Campusano, I'd probably tell my agent, hey, can you find me another spot? Give me a fresh start. This has gone on for 5 years. For 5 years. But the rotation, it's down. You got 3 guys. Hart, the left-hander, Vasquez, and Kolek, right-handers. And maybe Kolek goes out today and, pitches well. Randy Vasquez pitched well in the spring. So we'll see where that goes. Okay, we're going to get into some predictions here. I'm going to start this off. Number one, I think the Padres are a playoff team. I really do. And I know a lot of it's going to depend on what happens in the National League Central and the National League East. I'm still not a believer in the Mets. I am a believer in their manager, Carlos Mendoza. And I think, Mendoza's a good manager. Obviously, Brian Snitker's a good manager. And I think those two teams are going to be, vying for playoff spots. National League Central, it's a crapshoot. Everybody's kind of anointing the Cubs, and, we'll see. Cardinals, I don't expect them to be all that great. Everybody's saying, oh, the Pittsburgh Pirates don't have enough depth. They just flat out don't have enough of depth. Cincinnati Reds, I think you got to give them a good hard look. They got some pitching. They got some dudes that can hit. They hit it in a hitter-friendly ballpark. And they got one of the best managers in baseball coming back in Terry Francona. So National League Central, Milwaukee, they're not going to go away. So you got some teams right there that, could beat up on one another, but they're all viable, not only to win division titles, but to, get in as a wild card. But I think out of the National League West, I think you got three teams. I really think between the Dodgers, the Diamondbacks, and the Padres, those are three playoff caliber teams. Dodgers are going to win the division. Let's not fool ourselves. Okay, there's no way anybody's going to beat the Dodgers in the division. They may win it by 10, 15 games. They can win it by how many they want to win it. If they want to win 115 games this year, they probably could, but they won't because they want to stay healthy. They're like the Padres with Darvish. They want to stay healthy and be ready for the postseason. Doesn't matter if you win 115 games. Win the division, be the number one seed, and you're sitting in the catbird seat. Dodgers are going to win the division, folks. I think the battle for second is going to be very interesting. And I think coming out of the gate, I would probably have to give the Diamondbacks a little bit of an edge because of the depth of their rotation and the uncertainty of the Padre rotation. I think the Diamondbacks have a really good lineup. I mean, they signed Josh Naylor. Naylor drove in over 100 runs last year with the Guardians, and he hit 31 home runs. And that's a pretty good hitter's ballpark over there in Arizona. Ketel Marte, I think one of the better players in the National League. I really do. But, can he stay healthy? Geraldo Perdomo, good young ball player, getting better. You got Eugenio Suarez at third base, got off to a miserable start last year and then heated up. And you got a good, solid outfield. And you got, Gabriel Moreno, the catcher, one of the best young catchers in baseball. You're right there. But you got a deep staff. When you take a look at what they got in their rotation, I mean, they got some dudes that can pitch a little bit. I think Torey Lovullo is a good manager. They bring in Corbin Burns. I mean, they got a lot over there in Arizona. But I think the Padres are going to be right there with them. I do think Arizona probably, I don't know, just by watching what they got, I'm thinking they get out of the gate a little bit quicker than the Padres do. So I'm going to give Arizona the nod. But again, it's not about winning the division anymore. It's about getting to the postseason. And look at last year, man. I mean, I'm going to go to my grave ticked off that the Padres didn't get to the World Series in 2024. They had that thing wrapped up. They were killing the Dodgers. They were killing them. Dodgers had no answer. And then the Padres all of a sudden forgot how to hit. I mean, the pitching wasn't bad. I mean, Darvish gave up those, 2 home runs and they got beat 2-0 in the one game? I mean, for crying out loud. 24 straight innings. I don't know if the Padres will go 24 innings scoreless again for 5 years. I watch they'll start the year like that, but I don't see it. I mean, I hope that's a motivator for the Padres. Padres got a good team, folks. And I know there are a lot of naysayers out there. And just because I'm picking them third doesn't mean I don't think they're a good ball club. I think they're a real good ball club. They've got a good core. They got a good nucleus. Just get into the tournament. Get into the tournament and match up your guys. Now, here's the deal. Padres have to be in it at the trading deadline because they're going to be over the threshold and they're going to have to pay. And they don't want to have to pay. So if they're out of it at the trading deadline, you might see King, you may see Cease, you may see a rise. If they're not making, and I know they signed King for a 2-year deal, but that's a deal he'll get out of. And Cease probably not going to be able to afford him or rise. I mean, seriously, at the trading deadline, if the Padres are not knocking on the door of a playoff spot, they're going to get rid of money. Because at the end of the year, when they look at the bottom line of their payroll, where are they going to be? Are they going to be under the threshold or over the threshold? And they don't want to have to pay that extra money. So let's hope they get off to a good start. And really, it comes down to the players forcing ownership. I want you to listen to me on this. It comes down to the players forcing the front office and ownership to get them help if we're in the pennant race. Okay? If you're 2 games under 500, you're not exactly making a great statement to the front office that you're really in it. You've got to be at or above 500 at the trading deadline. If you're under, and you got to kind of see who's in front of you and what their record is and what their schedule looks like, you may be a seller rather than a buyer. You got to be over 500. If you're right at 500 or a little bit over, then, hey, it comes down to AJ, the front office, and the ownership to ante up and get the Padres some help down the stretch. I don't want to see these guys go out the door. Now, I also realize that we're probably not going to be able to re-sign some of these guys. Let's be realistic. Get what you can out of them now, and let's see where this season can go. Let's make a run at the friggin' World Series, because it's going to be hard to replace Cease and King if they're not here next year. Musgrove will be coming back, but he'll be on an innings limit. Yu Darvish will be 39 going on 40 years of age. We don't know if Kyle Hart is going to end up being the guy, or Kolek or Vasquez. We don't know anything past this year. This is our year. Our window of opportunity is starting to close. And we got to keep it open as long as we can during this season and make a real run. That's what I got for you. Give me your opinion on that. Okay, so predictions. I got Dodgers 1. I got Arizona 2. I got the Padres 3. I got the Giants and Bob Melvin 4. And watch out for the Giants. They're all giddy up there because Buster Posey's now their head guy. So everybody's they got a little bounce in their step. First time they've had a bounce in their step in years up there. So, they may come out of the gate all fired up, and who knows, maybe they'll make a run. Maybe they'll be competition for us. I don't think they have enough to pass the Padres or the Diamondbacks, but the Giants are going to be competitive. And then you got the Colorado Rockies and Buddy Black. Buddy will get those guys to play as well as they can. But at the end of the day, they just don't have enough. They got some nice players, though. Tovar, Doyle. Tovar, the shortstop. Doyle, the center fielder. Those guys are good players. Doyle's won a couple of Gold Gloves. Man, he can go get the ball. And now he's starting to hit a little bit, too. So that's the way I see it. How do you see it? Where do you see the Padres finishing? I want your opinion on that. All righty, Jaime, I think the Padres finished third in the division under Arizona, but I think we snagged that third wild card spot. I'm right with you. And you get the third wild card, not going to be easy. But, hey, you know what? To get to where you want to be, Jaime, you're going to have to play somebody good anyways. Just get in the tournament. And then you match up your top 3 pitchers. You got a good bullpen. Just get in the play. That's all we need. You know what? The divisions are almost becoming meaningless except for seeding purposes. And I hate to say that because you always want to finish in first place. I mean, I want to finish in first place. We're not going to beat the Dodgers. Are you kidding me? Dodgers are 2-0, man. They're on a pace for 162 wins. But at the end of the day, just get in the tournament, and we got a shot. So just keep those questions coming. And I'm throwing out a lot to you today. I mean, there's a lot to cover today, folks. Brandon Lockridge getting the last Padres spot. Connor Joe getting sent down to the minor leagues. Jordan Wilson seems to be a front office strategy to let these old veterans give it a shot, then DFA for the other 3 or 5 guys who are in the roster contention. And you know what, Jordan? That's a very good point. It's like I said earlier, it's kind of what they did a couple of years ago with Nelson Cruz and Matt Carpenter. If you find, lightning in a bottle, or you find the fountain of youth, it works. And it's always good to have veterans pinch hit late in the ball game. They've been around. They know how to go about getting prepared. Not easy to play in the big leagues. And it's even tougher to stay in the big leagues. But you know what? You want to keep as many guys in your organization as you possibly can for depth. And that's what you need. And Padres, I mean, some of the guys who are going down, they're good players. I mean, this Oscar Gonzalez, I've been watching him for a few years, and he just never really gotten, a consistent opportunity. I mean, he got some time with Cleveland a few years ago, but he's 27 years of age. He's still got time. Connor Joe, a proven major league player, he got options left. I mean, you can go on and on, but you want to keep as many guys under control of under your umbrella as you possibly can. And I totally agree. If these guys don't get off to a good start, Yuli Gurriel or Jason Hayward or Martin Maldonado, boom, you got guys that are going to come up and take their spot. So, Jordan, good question there. Christopher, I could see the Padres finish second place, and who knows what happens in the postseason, keep the faith. I could see him finishing in second, but I think because of the depth of the rotation in Arizona right now, and I know Jordan Montgomery wasn't very good last year, but he's going to the bullpen this year. And I know he's in better shape. I know he's throwing the ball a little bit better. And of course, Ken Kendrick, the owner over there, really chided him at the end of last year, basically calling him a fat guy. Well, he got himself in better shape, but they're putting him in the bullpen. It looks like Brandon Pfaadt, who the Padres won against on Sunday, will be the fifth man in the rotation. But now I could see the Padres finishing in second. But I think because of where the Padres are at with Darvish out, the uncertainty of Kyle Hart being able to pitch in the big leagues. Remember when he got his feet wet with Boston, he wasn't very good. I know he had a great year last year in the KBO, but that was the KBO. Randy Vasquez ought to be a little bit better just from the 20 starts and the experience he gained last year. But I think going into the year, I got to give Arizona a little bit of an advantage over the Padres. But a very good question, Christopher. I love these questions. Rich McGuire, once again, the last 3 games of the year against the Diamondbacks, but this time it's at Petco Park. Could be a huge series. Rich, I love your optimism. And the reason I said you're looking ahead, and that's a good thing. And hopefully the Padres have a 2-game lead going into that final series, and they only need to win 1 ball game. 1 out of 3, and they move in and get into the playoffs and finish in second place. Is there anybody out there in the listening audience right now that think anybody but the Dodgers are going to win the National League West? If there is, please weigh in. But I like Rich. Rich is looking ahead on the schedule. And you know what, Rich? I hope those games do mean something. Actually, I hope we've already got it wrapped up by that point in time. Luis, good morning, Coach. Do you think Gavin Sheets will be the breakout star this year for the Padres? I like Gavin Sheets. I liked him when the Padres were able to get him, especially on a minor league contract. He's obviously had a great spring. He's worked very hard. A lot of people don't know, and they're starting to find out. His dad played a number of years in the big leagues, Larry Sheets. I remember Larry Sheets playing for the Orioles primarily. I think he's got a chance. And I'm kind of wondering, here's my lineup, by the way. Gavin Sheets isn't in the lineup. Cronenworth's not in the lineup, and Jason Hayward's not in the lineup on Thursday. Okay? I got Brandon Lockridge starting in left field. I've got Jose Iglesias playing second over Cronenworth, and I got Yuli Gurriel, the designated hitter, over Gavin Sheets. We'll see if I'm right. And then we're going to talk about that on Friday on the show. Mike Schultz got to go that direction. If you want to give your ball club the best opportunity to win against Chris Sale, you got to go with those right-hand hitters. And Hayward and Cronenworth probably not going to be all that happy. And Sheets probably just be happy he's on the ball club. But Gurriel. So, you're going to really stack that lineup the best you can with right-hand hitters. And, of course, you don't have a left-hand hitting catcher, so I would imagine they would go with Elias Diaz in the opener. Luis, good morning, Coach. Do you think Gavin Sheets will be the breakout star? I just mentioned that. Good stuff. We got the National League West predictions. Got Dodgers 1, Arizona 2, Padres 3. All 3 teams make the playoffs, in my opinion. And then you've got the Giants, and you have the Colorado Rockies. Colorado, I feel bad for Buddy because he's a good personal friend, Bill Schmidt, who's the general manager, good baseball guy. I coached against Bill way back when he was an assistant for Don Snedden at Santa Ana Community College back in the early 80s, man. I was real young. And Bill Schmidt's the general manager there now. Good baseball man. And they're trying to build their farm system up, but they have no money. And Chris Bryant's been a complete and utter disaster. Okay. I mentioned Padres wrapping up Cactus League play today. Seattle, Stephen Kolek on the mound. Not a whole lot to get into on that. We'll see how they fare more than anything else. Just get out of that game today without any injuries. All right, we got some other things we're going to touch on here. Let's get to the Good Guy Award. I don't know how many people saw this on. It was on Friday night, but the Good Guy Award goes to veteran college basketball official Roger Ayers. Let's take a look at this.
These guys don't know if they'll get time in the NCAA tournament.
I like that Roger Ayers to stop the game to get the sub in.
Okay, and we're going to play that back again.
Opportunity to play.
Okay, Friday night, Liberty was getting beat by Oregon. 81-52 was the final. Roger Ayers, a veteran official.
Game to get the sub in.
Okay.
Oh, man, get in here.
It's like there's a wet spot. He could get this young redshirt freshman, J.C. Shire Jr. into the ball game. What a class move with about, 54 seconds to go. They could have gone back and forth and up and down, and the kid would have never got on the court. Now, hopefully Liberty will get back in the NCAA tournament in the future to where Shire can actually play. But you talk about a class move by an official. Now, you wouldn't be able to do that in a tight ball game, nor would you be putting a sub in with under a minute to go in a tight ball game. I thought that was really cool. I mean, that young man will remember that the rest of his life. And he didn't have a shot attempt. He didn't have a point. He didn't have a rebound. I'm not even sure he touched the ball once he got into the game, but it doesn't matter. That was a cool moment. And, you saw the official. He kind of pretended like there was a wet spot. He helped the young man up, which is pretty cool. And the young man, I think, said thanks. And then Roger Ayers looked like he tried to wipe that wet spot again. There's no wet spot. That was just a hell of a move by him. I thought that was really cool. So I wanted to point that out. Roger Ayers, and the young man was a redshirt freshman, J.C. Shire Jr. from Liberty. Good stuff right there. Okay. Friday. We talked about Magoon Gwath of San Diego State. Supposed to be making a decision. Whether or not he was staying at San Diego State, whether he was entering the NBA draft, and then still have the ability to pull out, or was he going to enter the transfer portal? We haven't heard anything from Magoon Gwath. Maybe that's good news. I don't know. Hopefully we don't hear something later today. But we heard Friday night, Nick Boyd is out. He's entering the transfer portal. He said after the NCAA tournament that, hey, we're going to be back. We're going to be back. And then he walked into Coach Dutcher's office Friday morning and said, hey, I'm entering the transfer portal. Are you mad at Nick Boyd? I'm not mad at him. I wish him the best. I'm disappointed. If you're an Aztec fan, how can you not be disappointed? But you know what? More power to him. And I'll tell you the other thing. Well, there are a couple of things that I took away from the NCAA tournament. And give me your opinion on Nick Boyd. I'm sure everybody's got an opinion. Number one, it's going to be hard for mid-majors to do anything in these tournaments. Is they may win the first game, but when they get to that second round, going to be tough. All these power conferences are getting all the players. And it's going to get even worse because everybody wants to win. Everybody is competitive. Everybody wants to win. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be tough for whether it's San Diego State, St. Mary's, Mountain West schools, whoever. Unless you got a big bag of cash, you're going to be tough to compete going forward. It's only going to get worse every year, too. And the other thing that I wanted to mention, and we just complimented Roger Ayers. By the way, he's an outstanding official. He was the official last night in that Maryland game where Queen hit that buzzer beater and everybody was saying it was a walk. It wasn't a walk. It may have looked like a walk, but it wasn't. I watched it 38 different times. I heard what everybody had to say. but I made my own opinion up. I was watching that game live. I thought it was a good play. And if you want to dissect it, you can dissect it all you want, but it was a good shot, great play, and he didn't travel. But what I was going to say, the whistles are too tight. They're just too tight, but not only are they too tight, they seem to really benefit the blue bloods. I mean, some of the mid-major programs, they don't have a chance. The games are being called completely different. You got too many guys in foul trouble, and it really sucks. I mean, I want to see a flow to a basketball game, and you're just not seeing it in a high percentage of the NC2A games. I watched some good games over the weekend. Watched a lot of basketball. Man, TV was on from morning until night. I was still trying to find an NIT game last night. And by the time that Oregon game was over against Arizona, all the NIT games were done. But I don't really like the way the games have been officiated. And the other thing that I want to bring up, going back to Nick Boyd, Lamont Butler transferred last year out of San Diego State, and he'd been there for 5 years, 4 years. I think he had a redshirt year, if I'm not mistaken. And he had 1 year left, and he decided to go to Kentucky. And he's battled injuries, had a good year. He's played real well. All of his numbers are much better at Kentucky than they were at San Diego State. His shooting percentage, everything. He's a good player. I've always said when he was at San Diego State, when he was a sophomore, I go, if this guy could really shoot, this guy would play in the NBA because he's that athletic, but he's still not a great shooter. But his percentage is a lot better with Kentucky, and I haven't looked at them lately, but early in the year, they were much better than they were ever at San Diego State. But, guys at San Diego State are watching Lamont Butler. They probably know how much money he got. And they're saying, man, all these announcers are talking about Lamont this, Lamont that, great defender, great kid, hard-working guy, played at San Diego State. Players like adulation. And now it's all about brand. It's not about a brand for San Diego State. It's about the player's brand. And you don't think that Lamont Butler, by leaving San Diego State, going to Kentucky, not only did he probably get a ton of money, and his bank account is very high now, but he increased his brand. He put himself on the map as a basketball player. Whether or not he plays in the NBA, I mean, he's going to play somewhere next year and make money. But people are going to remember him if he wants to get into coaching someday. They're going to remember the kid who played at Kentucky. They're going to remember that great shot he made at San Diego State, but they're going to remember he played at Kentucky. I don't know if Kentucky can win the national title. Florida's going to be tough to beat. Florida barely got by the two-time defending champ UConn yesterday. But now players want to build their brand, just like people in social media, the influencers. Okay? And Nick Boyd is probably going to try to build his brand. And hopefully the Aztecs can keep as many guys possible here, but it's not going to be easy. It's not easy at all. It's tough. Okay, let's get to Coach's Mailbag here. Wow, we're giving you a lot of stuff today. Cesar Martinez. I love that name. Reminds me of a switch-hitting middle infielder. I'll take Oscar Gonzalez over Sheets. Hayward is our left fielder. Go with 12 pitchers to start out the season, 14 position players. So Joe can back up Hayward and Oscar can stay. I don't see it. Oscar Gonzalez, right-hand hitter. You want to use that spot out there as a platoon spot right now. Now, that could change. Well, we'll see. Sheets had awful good spring. Big power left-hand hitter, can play first, can play right, can play left, can DH. I think Sheets has to make this ball club, and I just think Oscar comes up in the old numbers game more than anything else, Caesar. That's the way I look at it. But Padres, they're going to go with 13 pitchers. I mean, these guys, they're going to throw 4 innings, and they have to use that bullpen quite a bit. And again, they don't have any days off at the start of the year. I mean, they've got 7 straight days they got to play, and then they go into Chicago with an off day on that Thursday. Visser, I'm not super confident about our 7, 8, 9 guys. That's why I'm counting on 1 through 6. Sure, I'm missing Higgy, though. Yeah, Kyle Higashioka, boy, he got a really nice contract there with Bruce Bochy and Chris Young and the Texas Rangers. But I agree, 7, 8, 9. Man, that's like three automatic out innings. But you know what? Once the season gets going, these guys will figure it out. And you know what? Mike Schultz knows how to play small ball. if guys get on, he'll have guys bunt rather than sit up there and swing the bat, hit into a double play or strikeout. He came from the Cardinals. He knows how to manage. He'll be fine. He'll figure that out. They'll be more productive than we're giving them credit for right now. Okay, let's keep it rolling here. What else we got today? What else we got? Honesty. In my humble opinion, this current core has peaked. The younger players should make this roster for not only this year, but the next couple of years because rookies and veteran minimum contracts. Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that. I mean, let's face it, Yuli Gurriel's here for a short term. Jason Hayward's here for a short term. Jose Iglesias probably here for the short term at 35. Keeps himself in good shape, can still play shortstop a little bit, primarily a second baseman, can play third. Could DH if needed. Not going to get a lot of power out of him, but you're going to get a guy that can hit the ball in the gaps and hit a few doubles here and there. Even the veterans, I mean, they're not making a lot of money. I mean, Brandon Lockridge will probably make a little over 900,000, maybe $1 million. Hayward was getting $1 million plus incentives. If he does a good job, he could take it up another 1.5 million. Connor Joe was kind of on a similar contract. But at some point, these young guys are going to come up. Not everybody's going to stay healthy. Okay, keep it rolling here. I love these questions. All right, Jaime. Hey, Coach, what teams do you think fight for the wild card? National League East is stacked with good teams as well. I think the Mets, Atlanta are in there. Obviously Miami's not a very, very good ball club. Philadelphia, I think, will be in there. Philadelphia could end up winning the division. I like Philadelphia. I like the way they play. And I got a lot of respect for the Braves because I think they do a great job at developing their players. The Mets, they always find a way to screw it up, but I like their manager. The only reason I think the Mets can make a run in the wild card is because of their manager. Philadelphia, I think, are really tough if they get into the postseason. But I think on the long haul, I like Atlanta to win that division. But I think the Phillies will probably be the number 2 team. A lot of people are picking the Phillies to finish third in that division. I think I'll pick them second. So I think the wild card teams will be, we got 3 wild card teams? Probably be the Phillies, the Padres, and the Diamondbacks. That's the way I look at it. So we'll see where it goes. Everybody's talking about the Cubs. Cubs. They didn't look all that great against the Dodgers. Coach, who do we have as that speedster to pinch run in crucial situations? Without a doubt, Brandon Lockridge. I think one of the faster guys in all of baseball. And I think that's why they're probably keeping him. I'll tell you what, Tyler Wade has to be disappointed because, and I'll be anxious to hear later today. I'm sure Mike Schultz will talk about that. He was a big Tyler Wade fan, but Tyler Wade, who re-signed a contract with the Padres, not for a lot of money. I think it's right under $1 million. Did a lot of the things that Brandon Lockridge could do, except Lockridge can play 3 outfield spots. And Wade can play the infield. He could play the outfield probably, but I think Lockridge's a little bit better hitter. But Tyler Wade, in his role last year, I thought did a really nice job. He can bunt. He can, put the ball in play, pinch run, steal a base. He'll be up here at some point in time. There's no question about that. All right. Honesty, this current, okay, we got that. Coach, who do we have as a speaker? That's the one I just answered. There we go. We got it. We got it all done. Man, I'm going to have to get some water. Be dehydrated after this show. Okay, so Brandon Lockridge gets the last spot on the Padre roster. He was told that this morning. So your bench, you've got Jose Iglesias, Martin Maldonado, Gavin Sheets, Brandon Lockridge. Am I missing anybody? I don't think so. Oh, Yuli Gurriel. So we've got the oldest bench in baseball. We got a 40-year-old DH first baseman. We got a 38-year-old catcher. We got a 35-year-old middle infielder. And then, Jason Hayward's 35? We got a veteran ball club. All right, we'll be back in. Oh, I can't wait for Friday. I want to see if Mike Schill follows through like what I'm telling him. I'm trying to manage the Padres on my podcast. I got Lockridge starting in left. I've got Yuli Gurriel as a designated hitter, and I got Jose Iglesias starting at second base. I'm loading that lineup up against Chris Sale with right-hand hitters. That's the way I see it. So again, please subscribe. Please like. Please, whether you're on the YouTube platform, the X platform, or the Facebook platform, please, please, please send me your questions, and we'll reconvene. Hey, we show up on Friday morning at 10 a.m. Padres are either going to be 1-0 or 0-1, but you know what? We're going to break it all down for you. Have a great week. Enjoy opening day. Talk to you Friday morning, everyone. Bye-bye.